So UFC 315 is officially in the books, and Jack Della Maddalena is now the welterweight champion. And I have a lot of mixed emotions, man, following UFC 315 here. So we're going to discuss all of that in this video because from top to bottom, I actually thought that this was a really, really good card. I thought that on paper it was a little bit lackluster for a pay-per-view, but we know the UFC, they kind of cut it short whenever they go to Canada, man. But the one thing I can say, that Canadian crowd, they showed up last night. That was a super fun environment. I mean, the crowd, they were there from, basically the first fight of the evening. The energy was crazy. I liked everything about this card, man. We had some really, really fun fights, some great finishes. We did have, a boring-ass co-main event between Shevchenko and Manon Fiorot, but other than that, man, this card was really special. But all of the kind of noise coming into this, right, kind of started at the press conference on Thursday where Ilia Topuria, before the press conference started, he said, look, basically depending on what happens in the main event at 315, that is going to decide what happens moving forward for me and for Erslan Makhachev. So we all kind of had this idea, look, if Belal goes in there and wins, we're getting this mega fight. We're getting Ilia Topuria versus Erslan Makhachev, which I've been saying that is probably the biggest fight in the UFC. Both of them are in their primes. Two of them, both of these guys, you have Islam's pound for pound number 1. Topuria, I think, is listed at 3, but I have him at 2. That would have been an unbelievable fight. It's not to say that we can't get it at some point, but it sounds like that is going to be prolonged to where we see when that happens, those type of fights, sometimes it's just one of those things that we may never see, right? And I hope that we could get it at some point. So we'll discuss how I could, see that kind of playing out, moving forward. But we have a big fight on our hands, man. And that is Erslan Makhachev. If he does move up, which it sounds like that is exactly what's going to happen. Islam versus Jack Della Maddalena, which stylistically, what an intriguing fight, man. And from what I just saw from JDM at 315, you talk about a hard-ass fight for Islam. Super intriguing, though, but it sounds like we're going to be getting Topuria versus Charles Oliveira for, probably the interim title at International Fight Week, which, like I said, regardless of what happened in the main event for 315, we were going to have a badass fight next for Ilia Topuria at lightweight. Super interesting to see how all these things play out. So we'll discuss a little bit more about that moving forward. But let's hop into this, man, starting right away with the main event between Belal and JDM. First of all, right, Belal is one of those guys who faces a lot of heat in terms of his fighting style for not being super entertaining. This was one of, if not the most entertaining fight of his career. Belal Muhammad went out there and he went after Jack Della Maddalena in the striking, which was an absolute mistake, right? Coming into this, I would just kind of like to know what the game plan is from Belal coming into this fight, because if you're going to stand in front of Jack for 25 minutes and just, try to have a boxing match or, just a straight striking fest with him, that's not going to go well for anybody at 170 pounds. That was made very, very clear last night, because what we've seen from JDM, not only is he one of the best strikers and boxers at 170 pounds, he's climbing the ranks of being one of the best overall strikers in the UFC period. And I've said that he's a top 5 boxer. You could put him top 3, depending on how you rank. I have Topuria at 1, probably JDM or Jan tied at 2. Just from what we saw from Jack last night, man, I don't have enough good things to say. I have so many good things to say. I feel like I said that wrong. But the point, JDM did so many things that I was just not necessarily expecting. I was not expecting to see a guy who got injured against, I think he got injured in the Gilbert Burns fight, if I'm not mistaken. He's sidelined for, in a super extended period of time. And whenever that happens, it's like, well, are we going to see the same guy? He's going 25 minutes in a championship fight, something we haven't seen since he's been in the UFC. There were all these questions coming into this fight to where we got every single answer we needed as far as JDM moving forward. And I'm going to say this before I get into more of the technicalities of this. I've always been someone that's liked watching JDM fight, man. I think that he has an unbelievably fun style. And the thing that I respect the most about JDM, other than the fact that I love watching him fight, this is a super humble individual who just really, he took some shots at Ian Gary, I think, right? But he's just a super humble guy, a guy that is just class, goes out there and is one of those dudes that's not going to talk a big game. Maybe he says a few things here in the embeddeds or the countdowns, kind of rile some people up. but he's going to go out there and he's one of those dudes like, I don't really need to say much. He's like a GSP type of guy. I'm just going to go out there. I don't have much to say, and I'm just going to back it up. Like an Islam, like a Habib, like some of these guys who are just like, I'm just going to go out there and let my fighting do the talking. I like JDM, man. He's a humble guy, and I feel for Belal because I wanted to see him get this done. I wanted to see him kind of continue to build his legacy because he's one of those guys that had this runaround, right, to get his title shot and to go out there and beat Leon the way he did and, have all these, the doubters and silence them and kind of do all those things. And the resume that he was putting together was absolutely spectacular. I mean, it still is spectacular. So it's just a weird mix of emotions here. But I will tell you this, man. This was a spectacular performance by Jack. It was a spectacular performance because what I saw from him was just an evolved fighter, right? We already knew that Jack had excellent boxing. He switches stances very well. He's good out of the southpaw and orthodox stance. He gives you a lot of different looks, and, he's known for basically being just a boxer, but he's got excellent knees. He's got very good kicks when he decides to throw them, and his footwork and distance management, I mean, it really couldn't have been any better. It really couldn't have been any better. And I know Belal, he surprised a lot of people, right? Because he went out there and didn't really push the action in terms of the wrestling and the takedowns. And he just went in there and basically tried to strike with JDM. And he did a lot better than I think what a lot of people would have thought coming into this if Belal was not going to really choose to wrestle, which I thought was incredibly strange, right? Like I said, I would love to kind of hear the approach and the game plan because I thought that Belal was going to push the action the minute the fight started. Get in his face, pressure him, back him up against the fence, mix in the takedowns, because that is what makes Belal hard to deal with, is that relentless pressure, pace, and style that just give guys a ton of problems. Kind of like what Merab does, right? He kind of starts a little bit methodical, gets in your face, maybe gets that first takedown, but it's like a chain reaction and it starts to build throughout the fight. But I'm starting to think, right? A lot of people are like, Belal just didn't stick to the game plan. He didn't do what Belal does. And yeah, that's part of it. But I think a lot of that has to do with what he was seeing and feeling in there against JDM, because the footwork, Jack was just never there to get after him, right? Because one of the big critiques that I had with Jack coming into this was, if you go back and watch the Hafez fight, if you watch the Gilbert Burns fight, if you watch these fights where JDM's getting taken down, it was way too easy to get to his hips. It was way too easy to get to his hips. And it just shows, man, whenever Craig Jones comes into these camps, we've seen what he's been able to do with Volkanovski, right? Preparing him for the Islam fights and all these different things. Craig Jones is like a grappling whisperer, right? And I know Jack already had like pretty good grappling skills, right? He has good submissions, which is kind of underrated in his game. And yeah, he had pretty good takedown defense to where if you take him down, he will get back to his feet. But we just saw a different level. I mean, even when Belal was able to take him down in the later rounds and get into those dominant top positions, you saw Jack just get back to his feet. He scrambled well, and a lot of that was, look, Belal doesn't have that type of threat on the ground like a Sean Brady, to where when he takes you down and he has you in these positions, you're not super worried about getting ground and pounded out. You're not super worried about submissions, to where it gives you those avenues to kind of recklessly or, try to just explode back to your feet, which kind of is a little bit of a hindrance in the game of Belal. But the bottom line is this: Jack looked excellent. He looked fast. He looked sharp. His counters were outstanding. He kept Belal guessing all night long. And the damage that he was able to land on Belal, I mean, you saw the pictures. I mean, he busted him up bad, man. And the boxing of JDM, it's the best in this weight class. It's the best in this weight class. His hands are very good. He's got a nice high guard. Everything comes from where it's supposed to. Jack is super technical, super clean. This was a dominant type of performance for Jack Della Maddalena. Now, Belal Muhammad, he had a lot of moments in this fight, man. He had a lot of moments in this fight. He went in there and he did, like I said, a lot better than what a lot of people would think. If you didn't think that he was going to be able to get the takedowns and he was stuck on the feet with Jack, I feel like it was like, well, he's probably going to get KO'd. But he came in here, he landed a lot of good shots of his own. He was landing some good shots on Jack. He was causing some damage, on Jack Della Maddalena. And I thought that was very impressive from Belal. But to not go out there and look to pressure early and look to mix in the wrestling in those earlier rounds, it's just very questionable to me. It's very questionable to me. And I feel like maybe that was the pressure getting to Belal to maybe be more exciting. He's like, I got, hands like Canelo. He was, again, finding some success, with the striking on the feet. So did he kind of have this maybe false confidence to not decide to grapple, early on, because as the fight plays out, when you get even more sweaty, that's going to make guys slipperier, right? I think that Belal said in his corner, he's like, Jack's slippery, man. It's hard to kind of get a hold of him here. And I just saw so many things that maybe Belal could have done differently, but I feel like a lot of that is because of, look what Jack did. The footwork, he was never a stationary target. He was consistently floating around on the outside, mixing his stances, changing his angles, cutting off. His head movement was spectacular. And that is credit to Jack Della Maddalena, right? People are like, oh, the game plan of Belal, which, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting, right? Because he didn't really pressure a whole hell of a lot early on. But I feel like a lot of that was he knew the danger in terms of the boxing of JDM. And I think that there was maybe the side of Belal where he's like, I need to drag this out a little bit before I start trying to crash, JDM up against the boards, to where maybe he's a little bit more fatigued so he doesn't have the same kind of sting in his shots. I don't know. I just thought that it was kind of crazy that we didn't see the grappling side of the game plan from Belal start to really come into effect until, late into the fight, which I thought was just kind of a mistake on the side of Muhammad. But the bottom line, man, JDM is outstanding. He's spectacular ever since coming into the UFC. I mean, it's crazy when you see these guys come in, right into the UFC, and then it's like, now he's a world champion. Like, it's crazy when you see these fighters come in, they have a few fights, and then bang, world champion. Absolutely great performance by Jack Della, man, because Belal, we've seen, like I was saying before, he's an issue for everyone in this weight class. His pressure, his pace, his strength, his wrestling, his volume, all those things. Like, you might not be super scared of, like, oh, I'm going to get knocked out, I'm going to get submitted in this fight, a fight with Belal. Like, that's not exactly what you're worried about, but you better be able to bring it for 25 minutes. And what we knew about JDM coming into this fight, that he just already, confirmed even more. We know he's a dog. We know he's got grit. We know he's tough. We know that he has all of the qualities to be a champion, but could he get through a guy that was going to mix everything up, that was going to keep him constantly guessing? And we just didn't see that in this fight. And I think part of that was maybe a little bit of a lack in, the strategic approach from Belal. But I think also, whenever you get in there and you see someone that is moving around really well, you're not able to get to their hips, you're not able to cut them off and back them up against the fence. I think that speaks to what JDM was doing, his footwork, the way that he was sitting just at the edge of range, to where every time Belal tried to close distance, you have to remember, when he dropped Gilbert Burns with that knee, right? We know that JDM's got good knees. He's got good, good timing on these shots whenever you try to close the distance. He obviously, I think, was doing something that was making Belal a little bit cautious in the earlier rounds, but it was just a huge mistake to not try to grapple early, because I think that could have maybe fatigued JDM a little bit more. But the bottom line is, considering the version that we saw of Jack in this fight, man, it would have been hard for, even if Belal decided to grapple early and decided to just completely say, F it, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to march him down, I'm going to get in the phone booth and fight kind of reckless. I don't even know if that would have been enough, considering what we saw from JDM last night. He evolved, man. He even leveled up more than where he was already at. His striking got even better, which is even scarier. He's a powerful guy for the weight class. He's speedy. His movement is excellent. This was an outstanding performance by Jack Della Maddalena. Like I said, some questionable things in terms of the approach from Belal, but you have to give the credit to Jack, because I think a lot of it was the footwork, was the range management, and was the crisp cleanness that JDM was landing, because every time Belal tried to get close, bang, bang, he's getting jabbed. Jack's dipping underneath. He's slipping these shots, and he was just never a sitting target, right? Where Belal was able to back Leon up against the fence, Leon wasn't using very good lateral movement. Jack was never a sitting duck. He was constantly moving, constantly switching stances, constantly utilizing footwork to not be a sitting duck, to where Belal could get after him. Great performance by Jack Della Maddalena. And again, hats off to Belal Muhammad. I thought that he would be able to go in there. He would be able to, get after Jack early, mix things up, keep him guessing, take him into those championship rounds, to where we wouldn't see Jack give up or anything. Like, I know Jack's a dog coming into this. So that's why I was like, Belal would win a decision. It would be Jack looking good in the earlier rounds. Belal kind of starts to figure some things out, but eventually that pace and pressure starts to become a little bit too much, to where Jack's not able to necessarily get back to the feet as quickly. Belal's able to control him. He's able to land him in terms of the striking totals and the volume. Really good performance by JDM, man. Really, really good performance. And now he's put himself in position for a huge fight with Islam Makhachev, because we already know Islam, obviously the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the sport. He is, in my opinion, one of the greatest fighters of all time. And I know that resume-wise, we got John Jones, Mighty Mouse, Volk. We got all these guys out there with these crazy resumes, GSP, the list goes on and on. In terms of the overall skill set is what I'm focusing on here. Just basically no weaknesses, super good everywhere, super technical, power, excellent finishing ability. That is Islam Makhachev, and him moving up to 170 pounds, that has always been intriguing. That has always been obviously a dream of his to become a double champ and to do it, because if Belal was still the champion, we wouldn't be getting this right now, right? Which is kind of the bitter, sweet thing, because then we'd be probably getting Topuria versus Islam, which would be the huge fight. But we now have, which isn't as big of a fight, but I still think is an absolutely spectacular and big fight between JDM and Islam, because considering that Jack was able to do that to Belal, who obviously is not Islam, right? Belal is a puzzle to deal with. It's kind of this Merab-like approach. Islam is a different challenge. He's a very, very smart fighter. He's super well-rounded, and he will take the fight to wherever he thinks he can be better than you at. And I don't think that there's any shot in hell that Islam would have went out there or will go out there against JDM and not attempt to grapple in the early rounds. There's just no way that Islam would approach the fight that way. But either way, man, I am super excited to see how JDM, and Islam plays out, because to be honest with you, I think Jack Della is an insanely hard fight for Islam Makhachev. An insanely hard fight, considering what we just saw. And I know, people are going to be like, well, Belal didn't really utilize the wrestling, and if he did, maybe it could have been different. But a lot of that was the footwork, the distance management, the way that Jack was controlling range, the way he was moving, the way he was sticking and constantly not being a sitting duck. That's a hard guy to deal with. And you have to remember, yes, Islam's a big guy at 155. These welterweights are big dudes, man. They are big dudes. They are easily walking around on 190 sub-pounds outside of camp, right? They're big guys, right? So I expect JDM to look a little bit bigger than Islam. He's going to have that serious power, and we've seen, as good as Islam is, if you're getting into, these crazy fights with Volkanovski the first time, Dustin Poirier, that's where the intrigue starts to come in. What happens when you're in there against not just one of the, best strikers in the division, but one of the best boxers in the UFC right now with outstanding movement and has even leveled up the ground game even more? I mean, JDM was defending these takedowns really, really well. And even when he did get taken down, he was able to scramble back to his feet, and he was able to put his foot on the gas and come after Belal. Incredibly impressive performance from JDM, man. Incredibly impressive performance. He was, remember, supposed to fight Leon Edwards. They pulled him to fight against Belal because Shavkat got injured, and, he was sidelined because, of an injury, and, coming off the Gilbert Burns fight, to where it's like we have all these questions with the grappling. No more questions anymore. Jack Della Maddalena is that damn good. Super impressive performance, man. And again, I feel for Belal here, and at the same time, I'm also happy for JDM, because he's a super humble guy. He's got a super fun style, and whenever we get a turnover in the division, there are a lot of fresh matchups, and now we get to see Islam move up to 170 pounds, which is something I have always wanted to see. I think that, again, not as big as Topuria versus Islam, which I hope at some point we can get that fight, because if, I think that Ilia beats Oliveira, and then if Islam can win the title, or, whatever happens there, he can come back to 55, and then we have where Ilia's fought a contender at lightweight. So that argument is gone of, he needs to fight a contender first. Him fighting Oliveira, that knocks that out of the way. I believe he wins. Then we still have that fight, hopefully, somewhere in the future. And if Islam can go out there, beat Jack Della Maddalena, then go down and beat Ilia Topuria, I think he's in the GOAT conversation, man. Those would be some of the most impressive stuff that we had seen, at least in recent history, in terms of one of the most well-rounded fighters of all time. I believe that that is Islam Makhachev. There is a lot riding on what is going on moving forward. Super excited time to be in the fight game, man. Super excited. Just a lot of craziness going on, man. A lot of craziness going on. Great performance by JDM, though. Just a little confused as to why Belal didn't decide to grapple early. But again, I feel like a lot of that has to do with Jack Della Maddalena. Co-main, we had Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. Look, I thought that the fight was going to play out similar to how it did. I expected a little bit more action, considering that what we've seen from Manon throughout her career is, look, she's dangerous on the feet. She's fast. She's big for the weight class. She's long. She's rangy. And she's got fast hands, right? She kind of springs in and out of range. She's got those good high kicks. And we saw her grapple a little bit more than I expected into this fight. I didn't really expect to see much of that from Manon in this fight. But the bottom line is this. I thought that this was a boring fight. I thought that there was some exciting moments, right, when Valentina was able to drop her with that double right hook. I mean, that was basically Valentina's entire game plan coming into this fight. Look for the takedowns when they're there and just basically try to counter Manon Fiorot every time she entered range with a check right hook. That was basically the game plan of Valentina. And then Manon was like, I'm just going to have to do whatever it takes to win this fight. And I got to give credit to Manon, man. She got busted up early in the fight, and we saw her bite down, grit it out, and go 25 minutes with one of the greatest female fighters of all time. I mean, it was a very impressive performance in terms of it wasn't super exciting, but the way that Manon was able to go out there in a 5-round fight against someone as good as Valentina Shevchenko, it was impressive on the side of Manon Fiorot. And again, very impressive by Valentina, right? Because when you're the champion and you're someone who's been around for so long, there's all this film of you out there, right? So the challenge is there are these, I know Fiorot's 35 years of age, so she's not young, but in terms of her MMA career, she is very young, right? She's only got, I think, 13 pro fights coming into this. So she was young in that aspect. And whenever you have so much film on you as a champion, we've seen this with Adesanya, with Volk, and, Usman, the tape is out there where guys can start to figure out or girls can start to figure out those areas to take advantage of you. And we saw one of my critiques with Manon coming into this. Yes, she's dangerous. Yes, she's very good on the feet. Yes, she's incredibly hard to take down, which was my worry for Valentina coming into this fight, is if she can't win in the striking, she's going to be screwed because she's not going to be able to take down Manon and control her very, very much, right? We saw it at least in the first round, but after that, it was actually Manon that was having more of the success when it came to the grappling. But we saw Valentina's championship experience take over. She understood how to kind of sway these rounds, right? Obviously, the knockdown, gave her the round in that, and then the control in the first round and the way she was able to take her down. But in those championship rounds, it comes down to moments. It comes down to just kind of negating what your opponent is trying to do. And I feel like Valentina did just enough to be able to get this one done. But like I said, Manon, as the fight plays out, she tends to get sloppier, forget about the defense with the striking, and she just kind of lunges into range and becomes very, very predictable. If you go back and watch the Thug Rose fight, Rose busted up one of her hands. She was basically fighting with one hand, and she was right there with Manon Fiorot in the striking. And I know Thug Rose is an outstanding striker, right? But I think that we saw in this fight that people forgot just how good Valentina Shevchenko is as a striker, because we've seen over her past, several fights, she's kind of resorted more to a well-rounded approach, coming out there and utilizing the wrestling, taking people down, controlling them, to where now in this fight, I knew that wasn't necessarily going to be something that she was going to be able to do, because Manon is big, she's powerful, she's, someone that's very hard to take down. We saw that in the Erin Blanchfield fight. But overall, it was the clinch work of Manon, the way she was able to land those knees in close. Yes, we saw Valentina kind of out-wrestle her, but in terms of the clinch, Manon did very good, man. She did very, very good in the clinch. She landed some shots on the feet, but in terms of the striking out in space, I think Valentina did enough. But again, very close fight. I was impressed with the grit of Manon. She faced adversity early, went 25 minutes with one of the, the greatest female fighters ever. I'd like to see Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili next. I think that that's a big fight. I think that that's a fun fight. And at this point, considering what we've seen from Valentina, I think she's earned it. I think that she's earned a huge fight against a Zhang Weili or something like that, because in this weight class, Natalia Silva, we just saw what she was able to do to Alexa Grasso, which we'll discuss in a minute. If I'm Valentina, that's not a fight I'm excited for, man. That's not a fight I'm excited for, because I think Silva's a future champion in this division without question. So the challenge is, I think we see Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili next in a big fight there for what would be a women's MMA super fight. Very impressive performance to get the job done. Again, not very exciting either way. But again, we saw good things from both fighters in this. And again, Valentina Shevchenko at 37 years of age, still finding a way to get it done against these, these contenders in the weight class. So good win by Valentina Shevchenko. Like I said, not super entertaining, but an important win for Valentina. Moving on, Jose Aldo versus Ariel. Helwani. Look, Aiemann Zahabi, man. People are going to say that this is a robbery, and watching this, I haven't watched the fight back. I thought Jose Aldo won the fight. I thought that he, won the first round. I thought in the second round, Aiemann Zahabi did some good things, but in the third round, it was Jose Aldo who basically, I think it was the third round, right, where he basically had Zahabi out of there. I don't even know how Aldo didn't get the finish. I don't even know how Zahabi survived the onslaught of Jose Aldo when he just landed those nasty shots, the soccer kick as Aiemann Zahabi hit the floor. And I was like, this fight's over. And then Aiemann survived, and I'm like, oh, man, Aldo's going to be gassed. And then he stops, and he's like, and looks up at the clock, and I'm like, oh, no, man, we still got like 2.5 minutes. I'm like, this is a disaster. And then Aldo basically pulled guard, shot for, a horrible takedown. And I'm like, I think Aldo's going to get finished. And then he was able to survive. And, people are going to say robbery. And I did think that Aldo won this fight. But, considering how awful the body language was, considering how, Zahabi was constantly moving forward, peppering him, Aldo kind of, the way that he folded in the third round, he basically kind of gave this to Zahabi in a way, right? And I still think that Aldo won, but, to say that this is some crazy, unbelievable robbery, like Aldo, he shit the bed late in the fight. He gassed out. That was a horrible look. And I feel like the judges factored that in, man. I feel like they did. And Zahabi was moving forward, and outside of being dropped, he was right there. He was right there in this fight. And again, Ariel Helwani, man, he can scrap. Aiemann Zahabi, very, very good approach coming into this. They knew, right, because he's got his brother Firas in his corner, GSP. They knew, look, coming into this fight against Jose, don't just stand in the pocket and trade with this guy. You got to put pressure on him. You got to back him up, and don't give him that super technical back and forth, tit for tat type of striking battle, because if you don't do that, you pressure Jose Aldo, we've seen that guys can get him in that way. We saw Max Holloway do that. We've seen that when Aldo loses fights, it's either pushing him up against the fence like Merab or Bautista, right? Kind of, taking that route, or just pressuring the hell out of him, not giving him time to think, and just getting after him. And that's kind of what Zahabi was doing. He took a page kind of out of the Holloway book. And again, I thought Aldo won, but you got to give credit to Zahabi. How he survived that soccer kick and those combinations, I have no idea. And I'm like, oh, Aldo's gas, man. Aldo's gas. That was a super fun third round. And then the ground and pound by Zahabi when the fight hit the floor. This guy's 37 years of age and is just hitting his stride. Aiemann Zahabi, man, he's racking him up. This was the biggest win of his career. And then it looks, Jose Aldo retired after. So again, it sounded like, right now he's retired. I don't know if that's like a permanent thing. It sounds like he's kind of was battling coming into this with maybe wanting to even do this, right? But, he missed weight. There were some questions whenever that happens. It's like, oh, man, is he going to gas out? You're missing weight by a lot. What's going on there? I was glad that this fight still took place. This was a very impressive performance by Aiemann Zahabi, because we know Aldo's been, even though he's 38 years of age, he still looks great. He still looks great. What let him down tonight was his gas tank. And like I said, that body language, it was awful in the third round, because yes, he scored the huge knockdown and, it looked like he was going to finish the fight. But then to have Zahabi, on top position, landing good ground and pound, you looking gassed, looking up at the clock, that is a horrible look from Jose Aldo. But either way, this was a super fun scrap, man. A lot of fun moments. Jose Aldo still, just an absolute legend, man. An absolute legend. And if he is retired actually for good, it sounds like he is. What a legend, man. What a career. And again, I don't know if the UFC had an idea whether he was going to. I feel like they should have had some sort of package ready for any day now whenever Aldo decides to retire, because what a freaking legend of the sport Aldo is, man. What a legend. Either way, even though he lost, I think that it was still a good showing, because we've seen Zahabi's been on a roll, man. He's been on an absolute roll. Huge win for Aiemann Zahabi. He's put himself in position to probably fight a top 10 guy next. And the one thing we know about Aiemann coming into this, he's always going to be prepared. His, brother Firas Zahabi is a wizard in the fight game. Very smart approach. Foot on the gas, pressuring Aldo, get him tired, not let him have this pretty back and forth technical striking battle. Good performance by Aiemann Zahabi. I just thought Jose Aldo, he won the bigger moments, man. He won the bigger moments. Him gassing out, that bad look there in the second half of the third round, I think that is ultimately kind of what cost him the fight here. But either way, was a fun one, and it's sad to see legends like Aldo retire, man, because he's still got a lot left in the tank. But again, if you're not feeling it, man, then now is the time. So What a great career, though, from Jose Aldo, man. One of the absolute legends of the sport. Big win for Zahabi, too. Alexa Grasso, Natalia Silva. Look, coming into this fight, I knew Natalia Silva, she's special on the feet. She's dynamic, she's fast, she's a well-rounded fighter. I think she trades with Paulo Costa, right? Because I think that was Costa's brother that is the head coach in her corner, right? Team Barhasha, I believe that's Paulo Costa's gym. Look, Natalia Silva, she's a serious issue in this weight class. She's a future champion here. I mean, ever since coming into the UFC, you know, she's spectacular, dynamic on the feet, side kicks, that taekwondo style. And the biggest difference in this fight was I thought, look, if Grasso can pressure her, get her foot on the gas, crush the space, turn this into a boxing match, she could find an upset victory in this matchup. But what happened was the speed, the footwork, the timing, the range management of Natalia Silva. I underestimated it, man. She is lightning fast on the feet. I knew she was fast, but I didn't know she was that fast, right? I mean, she just looked like a world champion tonight. She looked like a world champion. And if I'm, looking around in the division, I'm like, give her a title fight, man. Give her a title fight, going out there, doing that to the number one contender who just, fought with Valentina Shevchenko. I mean, and was a champion at one point here, Alexa Grasso. For Natalia Silva to go out there and dominate the number one contender, it doesn't get any more impressive than that, man. It doesn't get any more impressive than that. And what we've seen from Natalia, she's one of my favorite women's MMA fighters right now. I mean, after watching that, how can you not like to watch her fight? She's super entertaining. She has good grappling that she doesn't really use because she's super dynamic on the feet and her footwork is so outstanding. Good luck trying to track her down. You saw Grasso getting frustrated. She couldn't cut her off because Silva's lateral movement was outstanding. The feints, the footwork, the timing. And every time Grasso tried to, bite down, go at that high guard, turn it into a boxing match, Silva would just drift away with these hooks and the speed, the head kicks whipping up out of nowhere. I mean, she landed a nasty head kick on Grasso that I don't know how it didn't knock Alexa Grasso down or knock her out. I mean, unbelievable performance by Natalia Silva. She's a future champion, man. I don't see anyone in this weight class beating her. And that goes for Shevchenko. That goes for Fiorot. I mean, she's spectacular. The speed, the range management, all of it. She's a star, man. She's an absolute star. She's going to be a superstar in terms of women's MMA, without question. When you have a style like that has the ability to knock people out on the feet, you're that dynamic, you're that explosive, you're that fun, you're that speedy, man. That was super fun to watch, man. Super impressed with Natalia Silva. Wasn't sure how she was going to deal with the boxing, the championship experience, and the pressure of Alexa Grasso. Unbelievable performance by Natalia Silva. Complete shutout. The speed, the footwork, everything was absolutely on point. She's a future champion, man. I'm not picking against her again. That was spectacular from Natalia Silva, man. Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Prepolec. Not much to say in this fight other than Benoit Saint Denis should be thanking the MMA gods that Joe Alvarez did not show up for this fight. Joe Alvarez would have butchered and probably ended the career of BSD. Benoit Saint Denis is not ready for any ranked opposition. He just isn't, man. And I know that may sound harsh, and it was at one point people were looking at, I was never high on BSD, man. I was never high on Benoit. I never understood the hype. I'm like, yeah, he's got power. Yeah, he's got good grappling and good submissions, and he's dangerous for sure. His defense is atrocious on the feet, man. Atrocious. Some of the worst in the UFC period. Some of the worst boxing defense, some of the worst striking defense. And I was surprised, actually, because I saw that now Sadidi Mavov's head coach was in his corner, and I'm like, oh, I feel like we're going to see some improvements in the striking of BSD. Not at all. He looked horrible in terms of the striking. I mean, he should have destroyed Kyle Prepolec in this fight. I mean, Prepolec was landing. He was defending well. I mean, yeah, Benoit did dominate this fight to a degree, right? I mean, when you look at the totals and you watch it back, I mean, he was really in no danger at all. But, Prepolec, yeah, he's a seasoned guy. He's been around the block. But come on, man. Benoit Saint Denis is so overrated. He has been. Right, he got destroyed by Poirier, right? Oh, he took him down, whatever. I said Poirier was going to knock him out. Then he goes out there against Moicano, gets sliced and diced, and then in this fight, he was struggling at moments. In the first round, he started to pick it up later into the first round, then came out in the second round and then took him down and subbed him in this and that. Maybe there were some worries on the side of Saint Denis coming off of back-to-back finish losses, but come on, man. This guy, he called out Mateusz Gamrot. I like that fight, by the way, right? If he's going to fight anyone in the rankings, I think Gamrot's a fun fight. He would have gotten destroyed by Joe Alvarez. He would have gotten destroyed, and we would have been having a very different conversation right now. Would have been like, maybe Saint Denis getting cut. Is his MMA career over? All these different things. And I like Saint Denis, right? He's a cool dude and all these different things. And, he goes out there and he's going to give it his all every single time. I like the guy. I just think he's super overrated. I think he always has been. But the bottom line, he went out there and did what he was supposed to do. I think he was the biggest favorite on this card, which, I mean, obviously he should have been. And he goes out there and gets the submission victory. So again, it was an impressive performance because, yeah, it was one-sided. But there were moments where I'm like, the expectations when you're that big of a favorite, we're expecting a first-round dominant finish. That's what we're expecting. At least I am. And to go out there and have Kyle landing some good shots on the feet, defending well, and you're just kind of sitting on his back, you're not really doing much. I don't know, man. Maybe it was because coming off of the 2 losses, he was a little bit more gun shy and some of those different things, but I wasn't that impressed, man. I know that, again, like he dominated in these different things, but in terms of the expectations for Saint Denis, which is going to be ranked opposition, you were supposed to be fighting Joe Alvarez. He would have gotten starched. He would have gotten destroyed against Joe Alvarez, man. He would have gotten cooked. It would have been bad. Would have been bad. That's the reality. Saint Denis hasn't improved at all. I thought that he would have. He spent all, this time away. I think that's Nasruddin Imavov's team that he's with now, right? That looked like that was Imavov's head coach, if I'm not mistaken. I was expecting a more polished version on the feet. We haven't seen it. None of the improvements have been made. He doesn't move his head at all. His striking defense is awful. Gamrot's a winnable fight because Gamrot's not dangerous on the feet, but we know Gamrot has really good wrestling. He's got crazy cardio. So again, that's actually a very intriguing fight. I like the matchup, but in terms of these guys that have good striking in this weight class and can defend a takedown and survive, Saint Denis not beating any of them. That's the reality, man. I like Saint Denis. I'm just calling it like it is. So again, he should have won this fight. Again, I was expecting a first-round domination at this point. But again, he went out there, did what he needed to do. I'm just saying, I'm calling it like it is. Good thing that wasn't Joe Alvarez because we would have been having a very different conversation with Saint Denis, or about Saint Denis. Featured prelim, Mike Malott versus Charles Radke. Spectacular performance by Mike Malott. I'm one of those people, I've been kind of hard on Mike Malott because I've had high expectations for him. He's someone that I was constantly picking throughout his career. He's someone that I'm like, look, he's polished, he's technical, he's clean, he's super well-rounded. His striking, everything comes from where it's supposed to. His grappling is outstanding. He's got really, really good submissions. I mean, he's just a super technical fighter, really well-rounded, and he went out there in Canada, was destroying Neil Magny, folded in the 3rd round, and got finished by Neil Magny. That was something to where I'm like, I don't know if I can ever look past that. Goes out there against Trevin Giles, and I'm like, okay, I think he gets back in the win column here because Trevin Giles isn't a dangerous challenge, right? He's not on the level of a guy like Mike Malott. But Malott didn't look super good in that fight, right? He looked too cautious to me, like he was worried about the gas tank. And, he comes into this fight against a guy like Charles Radke, who, yeah, he's not a world beater, but he's a gritty guy. He's got that street fighter type of vibe where he's just going to move forward, eat a shot to give one. And if you get hit by Charles, this guy's got dangerous power. We know he's got a good left hook. He trains with Belal. He's got a good team. And I was like, I feel like if he could get in the face of Mike, he can land a shot and get him out of there. But Malott fought very patient, very technical, was not throwing so much that he was going to gas himself out. And he was just picking his shots well. And he was clearly the more technical fighter. I mean, Charles Radke had no answers. He was moving forward, landing some shots, was headhunting too much. And Mike Malott, man, it's good for Canada that he got in the win column because for a while here, I'm like, they're trying to push this guy. He's not ready. When you go out there and you get a starching finish and to bounce Radke's head off the canvas like it's a damn basketball, that was an impressive finish by Mike Malott. He looked like a seasoned vet in there against Charles Radke. That's what I was waiting to see from Mike Malott in this weight class because when he looks like that, he looks like someone that can contend for a championship in this weight class because we already know he's well-rounded. We know he's super skilled. It's just the gas tank. Some of the inability to open up and let go. That was my critiques for Mike Malott. I called him Mike Maflop because of what happened in the Magny fight and how he just didn't open up and fight that impressively to me against Trevin Giles. He shut me up with this performance over Radke. Clean, technical, smart approach, bounced his head off the canvas like a damn basketball. Great performance by Mike Malott. Super important win to go out there and get a finish. And again, he's got a whole country in Canada rallying behind him. So big win for Mike Malott. Happy for him because I was worried in terms of where his confidence is going to be after getting finished by Magny. Being a little gun shy against Trevin Giles. Seems like he's kind of gotten over that hurdle and had a good dance partner in front of him because we know Radke's going to go out there and look for a scrap. So good finish and big win for Mike Malott. Jessica Andrade, Jasmine, Jasudavicius. Look, Jasmine is a serious problem inside this weight class. And, on the feet, Jessica Andrade, it was like, okay, if Jasmine can't get the fight to the floor, maybe Andrade has a chance. She didn't have a chance, man. Jasmine, she's as good as it gets. She's as good as it gets. Her striking is improving. She was long and rangy. She was keeping Jessica at range to where I'm like, she may even knock out Andrade on the feet, considering how Jessica was not able to gauge the distance, was not able to close it. And the minute that Jasmine shot for that takedown, took her down and was flowing flawlessly on the ground, it honestly looked like Hamzat. She looked like Hamzat out there. She was, picked up Jessica Andrade like it was nothing, took her back and just dominated her. This was a super dominant win by Jasmine Jasudavicius. And I was like, look, Canada's looking for their big MMA star since GSP. I'm like, look, man, it's a women's MMA fighter, to be honest with you. I think Jasmine is the best fighter out of Canada right now. She's spectacular. Her striking is getting better and better. She's long, she's rangy, she's super strong, as you got to see. Physically strong. And when it comes to the grappling, not many, if any, are going to be much better than her in this weight class. She's strong. She's got excellent submissions, and her fight IQ is outstanding. The way she was, sticking at range, not allowing Andrade to close the gap, was able to mix in the wrestling whenever the timing was right. Outstanding performance by Jasmine Jasudavicius. Super happy for her because, again, she has all the skills to be a champion in this weight class. And I think that her grappling, it's head and shoulders above a lot of fighters in this weight class. She's a serious problem. Outstanding performance by Jasmine to get it done. Modestas Bukauskas versus Aiemann Cutelaba. I thought that this was highway robbery. I picked Bukauskas to win this fight, and I thought Cutelaba won. Look, Modestas was way too hesitant, man. He was way too hesitant. Cutelaba, he was outstriking him the entire fight. Sure, Modestas maybe landed some of the bigger shots, but he was way too hesitant, right? And he was kind of stalling up against the fence in the third round. I'm like, you should be separating, trying to land some big shots. This fight is way too close, or way out of range. I thought that Aiemann Cutelaba was way ahead of him. I thought he was outstriking him. He was outlanding him. And, if someone's going to say 29-28, Modestas, I'm like, I don't know about that. But to hear that a judge scored it 30-27 Bukauskas, that's one of the worst scorecards in UFC history. Easily one of the worst scorecards in UFC history. But I don't know what the hell the judge was watching. How is it that these judges, it's like they're watching totally different fights? Bukauskas didn't do nearly enough to win this fight, in my opinion. And I picked him to win. I thought Cutelaba got robbed. Thought he won the fight. I thought it was actually very clear that he won the fight. He was outstriking him, way more active. What did Bukauskas do to put him in danger? Sure, he landed a couple shots. He wasn't opening up enough, was way too hesitant. Cutelaba was constantly throwing stuff out there. I thought Cutelaba clearly won this fight. So again, this is what happens when you leave it to the judges, though, because anything can happen. I thought that this was highway robbery. I thought Cutelaba won the fight. Was not impressed with Bukauskas. Didn't open enough. Way too hesitant. Maybe he was worried about, the power of Cutelaba. When he gets in the pocket, we've seen that Aiemann can cause some issues there. Modestas was way too hesitant in this fight. I expected him to open up more. He gets a little bit reckless, gets a little ooga-booga to where those shots can land down the middle, and maybe Cutelaba could have knocked him out. Maybe he was worried about that. Not impressed with Modestas in this fight. I thought Cutelaba won. I was more impressed with Aiemann, and he didn't even get the decision win here. So I thought that Cutelaba was the better fighter. Navajo, Stirling, Ivan Erslan. Look, it was looking dicey early, man. It was looking dicey because Erslan, he kind of reminds me of Volkan Oezdemir. Looks like him a little bit, kind of got the similar style to where you're not going to see much. Maybe they'll shoot a takedown here and there, but it's going to come down to the power in the hands. They're going to rely on the boxing. That's what you saw early. Erslan was landing some nasty right hands. Stirling just was not seeing the straight right hand of Erslan, and I was getting concerned because he busted up, the eyebrow right above the eye there of Navajo Stirling. But as the fight played out, Navajo started to make his reads, started to gauge his distance, started to gauge his timing, and then it was over. Erslan was taunting and trying to get the crowd all involved in it, and he was getting fucked up by Navajo Stirling, man. So that was not a good look there. The bottom line is this. We know what Navajo's about. These city kickboxing guys, they basically all fight the same. They are very good, from range. If you cannot crush the space and turn it into a boxing match, you're going to be in trouble. Stirling's got good front kicks. His grappling actually is pretty good. His takedown defense is good. We've seen that so far in his career. But it's the striking, it's the kickboxing from range that is very, very troubling for a lot of fighters in this weight class. Good performance by Navajo Stirling. A well-rounded performance against a dangerous power puncher in Ivan Erslan, because that was my thing coming into this fight. I expected Stirling to win. But if he got hit by some of those clean shots for Erslan, you saw there was a power advantage on the side of Ivan Erslan. And again, as the fight played out, we saw Stirling start to land some really good shots. But the technicalities, the speed, and the way that he was able to get into kind of that flow state as the fight played out, Navajo Stirling, very, very, very good performance. Rocky first round, but as it started to play out, he just showed levels, in my opinion. Was very impressed with Stirling to get that one done. And again, these city kickboxing guys, man, it's like they all fight the same. They got the jab, the feints, the footwork. Very, very good performance for Navajo, considering his UFC debut. Impressive on the Contender Series. UFC debut left some questions. None in this one. Very good performance by Stirling. Marc-Andre Barriault versus Bruno Silva. I was up here saying that, look, both of these guys are fighting for their job. Both guys just haven't looked particularly good. And I picked Barriault to win the fight because I'm like, Bruno Silva just seems like he's checked out of fighting. It just seems like he's not the same guy. This was a devastating finish by Marc-Andre Barriault that completely, destroyed the head or the skull or whatever of Bruno Silva, man. I mean, I hope Bruno Silva's okay. I mean, he was out for a while. They had to break out the stretcher for him. Those elbows in the clinch from Marc-Andre, they were brutal. They were violent. They were mean. Those were elbows that Marc-Andre was throwing in there, man. I mean, that was a mean performance by Marc-Andre. He was aggressive, got in the face of Bruno right away, and I mean, great performance by Marc-Andre. He needed a win considering, again, I was like, he's fighting some good fighters, man. You get KO'd by Joe Pyfer, that's one of the more dangerous guys on the rise in the middleweight division. So, Marc-Andre, to me, he was the better fighter. I thought that it would be a decision win, right? He would just kind of push him up against the fence, land some good shots in close, not go out there and brutally KO Bruno Silva like that. I mean, talk about what a career for Silva, man. I mean, it started off, things were looking great. He survives against Alex Pereira, and then just ever since, things have just completely went downhill to where he survived with Pereira and then gets brutally finished by Barriault. I mean, just craziness, man. But the bottom line, hopefully Bruno Silva is okay. And Marc-Andre Barriault, that was a violent finish. One of the more violent finishes we've seen in a while, man. That was nasty. Those elbows were devastating. Much needed win for Marc-Andre. Probably saved I think his job was probably on the line coming into that fight. Big win for Barriault. Daniel Santos, Young Lee. Look, Daniel Santos, I know he's a good fighter. This was an embarrassing performance from Lee. An embarrassing performance from Lee that I just don't know if I'm ever going to be able to overlook. I mean, I don't know how a guy who's a weight class below you takes the fight on short notice. You were already preparing for a fight. You had a full camp. How are you the one that gasses out? How are you the one that looks like you took the fight on short notice? I mean, Lee, he was sticking a really good jab, but as the fight played out after the first round, he just completely fell apart. It's like he had no idea that Santos was going to be continuing to look for takedowns. I mean, his base was sloppy, his footwork was awful, his timing was off. He was basically banking on just a jab, but the bottom line is Daniel Santos looked great. He was moving forward, mixing in the boxing, mixing in the takedowns, kept Lee guessing all night long. That was a very impressive performance by Daniel Santos. Very, very impressive, and I know he's a bantamweight. He looked good here. And Lee's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. He just looked terrible. He looked terrible. He looked like the guy who took it on short notice. I don't have enough critiques for Lee in this fight, man. I was just completely shocked at how bad he looked in this fight. His IQ was terrible. He was like not anticipating the takedowns. He was getting sloppy. His base was not sturdy to where he was even anticipating the takedowns. And it's like, you should be expecting them. Santos keeps taking you down. And Santos was out striking him on the feet. Right, and again, I'm like, if you throw straight shots down the middle, you can hurt Santos. We've seen that in his career. He doesn't move his head well. He fights just like Charles Oliveira, that aggressive Muay Thai style, get in your face. I'm not afraid of the grappling because I got good jiu-jitsu type of deal. He was there to be hit. Young Lee, not a good performance at all, man. He's going to need to go back to the drawing board, and he's going to need to figure some things out because I think he's going to find himself outside the UFC if he puts on another performance like that. But again, it was also a very, very good performance by Daniel Santos. I think he's a fun fighter to watch. He's got a good style. He's a very well-rounded guy. Good performance by Santos, especially since it was on short notice. He didn't look as in shape as he does down at bantamweight, which I guess is to be expected being up a weight class at short notice. But he was clearly in better condition than Lee coming into this fight. Impressive performance by Santos. Awful performance by Young Lee. Last but not least, Bekzat Almakhan versus Brad Katana. Look, man, coming into this, I'd said from the very beginning, even back when Umar fought Bekzat, I said, look, super risky fight for Umar to take because it felt like Umar had a lot to lose with not a ton to gain. But at this point, it turns out that it is going to be a lot for Umar to gain because that win is going to age incredibly well, just like I said it would. Bekzat Almakhan is a serious problem inside this weight class. To go out there and brutally KO Brad Katona. I mean, Brad Katona's not a world beater. He's a well-rounded guy, doesn't have a ton of finishing ability, but he's well-rounded. He's super smart as a fighter, goes in there with these super strategic game plans. Bekzat didn't care. He said, go ahead and close the distance. I'm going to knock your ass out with a brutal uppercut. Bekzat is dangerous. He's here to stay in this weight class. He is a serious contender in this weight class, man. And like I said, he dropped Umar Nurmagomedov, which I was like, that's going to be a hard fight for Umar. Coming into that, a lot of people are like, who is this guy? He's making his debut. He's no challenge. And then when Umar got dropped, they're like, oh, Umar's not that good. And I was up here saying, no, Bekzat Almakhan, he is just that damn good. Look how good Umar is. Look how well that win is going to age, man, and is aging. Like I said, it's going to age like fine wine because Almakhan, he's someone that's going to be competing for a title at some point in his career. This dude is spectacular. His takedown defense is good. It's just, again, Umar is that good when it comes to the grappling. But look, the striking of Bekzat, the way he closes distance, his power, his ferociousness on the feet. I was watching this guy before he got to the UFC and made his debut against Umar. I figured that it would be hard to finish Katona given what we've seen from Brad. His durability, his toughness was no match in this fight for a guy as dangerous as Bekzat Almakhan. It couldn't be any more impressive from Bekzat to start the night, to get back into the win column after losing to Umar, being, sidelined since the Umar fight to where it was like this long layoff. I was like, I want to see him back in there. Goes out there, super impressive finish victory by Bekzat Almakhan. We might be looking at a future champion at some point in this weight class. And I just can see it now, man. Him and Umar, I feel like those paths are going to cross again at some point. But Bekzat, serious problem inside the weight class. Love watching this guy fight, man. Super talented, super fun on the feet. Love watching Almakhan fight, man. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know what you thought of UFC 315 down in the comments and how you see things playing out moving forward with the whole Islam and Ilya, ordeal and how those matchups are going to play out moving forward. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.